It's the first edition of the EWA Podcast. Now enjoy this 30-second intro so I can kill some time on this thing.
No one man should have all that power. The clock's ticking, I just count the hours. Stop tripping, I'm tripping off the power. I'm waking up, I feel it in my bones. Enough to make my system blow. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. Welcome to the glory days. Well, let's pass you by glory days. And the work of the young girls are glory days.
All right, and what an intro. I tell you what, kudos to whoever came up with that one, but it was me, so kudos to me. Welcome to the EWA Podcast. My name is Craig. I am the person who runs Cody Rhodes, and he's a national champ right now. And this is the EWA Podcast, where we talk about things going on in the WWE and the EWA, and just kind of like a hodgepodge of wrestling podcasts, just for you, the EWA universe. And every week or 2 weeks or however long this goes, I have on a guest host as well. And this week, joining me for the very first EWA podcast is our very own Brett, who controls Val Venus. Brett, how are you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. I'm really honored to be on the first guest host on this podcast.
Well, you know, I'm not going to lie. I talked to 5 or 6 people before you. They all declined, and
Yes.
It fell to you, so congrats. I wanted to a main thing of this is, I wanted to have people on to show those in the Fed. You know, I think sometimes people get caught up relating the characters that they play with the actual people, you know. And so when you see Cody Rhodes in his role plays and he's a cocky, arrogant asshole, I don't want people to associate me with being a cocky, arrogant asshole. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think many guys think I'm a aging, bald Canadian former porn star. But I definitely know that it's hard to shake some of the wrestling personality from some of the character personality when we do a game like this, for sure.
And no doubt. And, you know, Val Venus comes across as this blue-collar, hard-working, hero individual that's just an all-around good person. And I wanted to portray to everyone that you're not like that at all.
Yeah, I'm a total dick.
Exactly.
No.
Total dick.
Honestly, a lot of what I do with Val is an extension of my own personality, and kind of like they say with any good wrestler, their character is an exaggerated version of themselves. So a lot of qualities I use with him are definitely from my own personality. I will say, though, that I'm not at all exactly like him, but definitely I take a lot of my own personal stuff and put it into the role play, for sure.
Well, I think we'd all be lying if we said that we didn't take part of our personalities and portray them through these people. You take a look at Kurt Angle, and I think, I'm not saying that Bryce is, like psychotic or anything, but I think, I think some things that Bryce has probably experienced or gone through in his life definitely are portrayed through the role plays and, the ideas that he comes up with Angle. I myself am, I have a tendency to talk a little bit of shit, and I think Cody kind of denotes that as well. Like, I'm not as abrasive as he is about it, but I definitely see some of the stuff I experience and go through coming through as Cody Rhodes. So I can totally see where you're coming from with that. But let's get back to you. Let's talk about how you got started in e-fetting, and how you found your way to the EWA and how you actually got here.
I got started in e-fetting at like I'm sure anybody else would as a fan of professional wrestling. I was in junior high school at the time, and I think I just kind of was exploring on the internet and finding wrestling websites, and somehow
you were looking for porn and you found e-fetting.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
No, but I like anybody, I stumbled across this game that people were playing and realized that, this is actually kind of fun, and just experimented with portraying some different characters. I think my first role play was written as Billy Gunn, of all people, Mr. Ass himself. But I did that, and I kind of bounced around and picked up Val Venus as a character. That was probably almost 12 years ago, and have played him in various different roles in terms of gimmicks. Never actually as the porn star Val Venus, but as a lot of other different things. And about 6 years ago, I kind of took a break and stopped role playing altogether. And I guess 1 year ago, I was just kind of killing some time and trying to find something to do to take my mind off work and some of the stuff that kind of lets you down in life, and decided I wanted to, you know, hone my writing skills a little bit more. And somehow I threw I guess I was searching on one of those best of EFED sites, top ranking sites, and EWA was one of the few ones that was any good that was listed on those rankings. And so I just reapplied. I applied as Val Venus and joined, and I kind of took off from there. So it was kind of a return to EFEDing on a whim after about a 6-year break, and I'm really glad I did it. But it's definitely been a much different approach to it now than it was like 6 years ago. You know, I'm a totally different person now than I was in college or high school. So
yeah, and I think EFEDing itself is so much different than it was back whenever any of us started.
Right.
You know, I'm kind of down the same path as you. As I started a long time ago, and the things that we do now are nothing like what we were doing when you know, we first bounced into it. But let's talk about your start here in the EWA. You came in and you had some dart show matches, which were customary back about this time last year. And then you were thrown into the February pay-per-view, I believe. I'm not sure what it was called, but it was a 5 or 6 man ladder match for the national title, and then you won that. And then your career just kind of, your EWA career just kind of took off and vaulted from there. Let's talk about that for a bit.
I mean, I came in with pretty low expectations of myself when I joined. I just was kind of trying to, you know, see if I could even do this anymore, and was taking every role play kind of 1 week at a time, every match 1 week at a time, because I didn't know if I even had the juice to maintain this new character that I had. And you know, that Regeneration pay-per-view, the one with the 6 stairways to stardom, the ladder match that I was in, I thought for sure, you know, seeing the other guys in that match that, you know, Ed, who controlled Jericho at the time, would just kind of kick my ass and retain the title because he was really good. But, you know, things fell as they did, and I was lucky to pull off a win there. And you know, from there I just kind of took it every 1 week at a time and just took on all challengers I could, and never really had a plan but to just kind of keep having fun with it. And if that meant I kept winning, that's great. But I honestly never expected to hold on to the national title as long as I did, or to have the success I had in my first year. When I joined, I just kind of thought this was going to be a great way to let off some steam and have some fun. But I'm really glad that I had the chance to make an impact my first year in the EWA. Right,
and you came in, you had a marvelous record throughout all of 2012.
Thank you.
Numerous, countless wins against some great role players here in the EWA. But out of all those wins, is there one particular one that stands out more than the others? Like one that you maybe, like your role plays for that week, you felt like you really just like hit a home run that week, and that you really, you know, was there one win that stands out in particular to you from 2012?
Well, it's funny. Probably the week that stuck out to me the most when I realized that my character had legs and that I could definitely do something with Val Venus was a week when I didn't win the match I was in. I won one match but not the other. When we had the Civil War pay-per-view last year, I defended the national title against Tyler Rex. It was really my first feud in the Fed. The guy that actually worked a storyline with me, and then turned around and went to the last man against in the Civil War match, you know, losing very closely to John Steve Carino. I went into that week really just saying I'm going to put my full effort in for both matches and see what happens. I personally really loved what I did with the kind of the Civil War battlefield themed role plays for the big match and the kind of blood feud stuff that was going on with me and Tyler Rex in terms of kind of capping off that feud. And I was really proud of the work I did then, and I thought it was some of the best work I've done since I joined EWA. And so I think memory-wise, that was a huge win for me. I'd be remiss not to mention Super Brawl, but I think that's a whole different story. That was a big match for me. But I think what really had the most impact on my career was how I performed in that Civil War pay-per-view.
Right, it would be easy to come out and say Super Brawl just because of the magnitude of the role plays that week and the magnitude of participation. But
but honestly, I can't take credit for Super Brawl because I have good guys like you and Cleve and Fuzz on my side that kind of busted their ass in Jazz too, who kind of made that win possible. So I can't take credit for something like that. So.
And if you did, I was definitely going to throw that back in your face.
Of course,
so
I'm not stupid.
All right, well, before we get too far into the EWA talk, let's switch gears and talk about the WWE right now.
Sure, yeah.
Now, before we head into this, I want to go ahead and warn people like Steve, there might be some spoilers in here, okay?
Gosh.
Because we're recording this on a Thursday afternoon, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, we might be talking about stuff that happened Monday night, and I don't know when they show Raw over there, wherever you're from, Steve, so just pay attention, okay? Let's start with the biggest news of all. Not really news per se, but the passing of Paul Bearer. Very sad. Very, very, very great person and a great manager. And I think the thing I wanted to talk about with this was Paul Bearer, never really did anything that bad. Like, you take a look at his his body of work across his time in the WWE, and it was really everything was really good. So where do you see him as like on this list of greatest managers in WWE history? Like, where do you put him on there? Because what he did was really good, like, for the character he was portraying,
that guy lived his character when he was in the WWE. He never strayed from it. He was consistent. He played a role to a T. And honestly, that helped a lot with, in the early days of The Undertaker, getting him over and kind of building him up into this, larger-than-life superstar. As far as where he ranks, he's got to be near the top in terms of good people as far as managers. At the same time, he's also just a guy that I know from a backstage point of view, a lot of wrestlers respected and loved. I remember not even a couple months ago listening to a really interesting podcast that Colt Cabana did with Paul Bearer that just went on and on and on about all these things he'd done in the industry. And the guy was friends with everybody and kind of touched everybody in his career. So, I'll tell you now, I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day as a result. So.
Oh, I have no doubt that something like that is definitely in the cards for him.
Sure.
To go on from there, this week we saw The Undertaker basically book a match for WrestleMania. I guess he didn't see the thread on WWE.com for WrestleMania booking. Here's my thing. I kind of feel like they wasted time this week. Like, what's the target demographic that WWE is looking for? Because everyone on the internet knows as soon as it was Rock Cena that it was going to be Punk Undertaker. So why waste our time with the Fatal 4-Way if we all pretty much knew Punk was going to win that match?
Well, I know what I read going into that was that the booking strategy for that old school Raw was that it was essentially a placeholder show, that they weren't going to do anything on that Raw that was going to continue the timeline, because they, were catering on that week specifically kind of towards an older demographic in terms of folks who maybe are trying to relive some memories and see the old school style. So as what I see there, they did that as a filler, essentially, to kind of pass time, but no real progress was made. They had on the same show, they had Triple H come out and talk about facing Brock Lesnar, but Lesnar wasn't there, so there wasn't any real progress in terms of that feud. And it seemed like they were stalling this past week. And even I wasn't really pleased with the way that they did the Undertaker thing with the little, the gong and have him come out halfway down the stage and then disappear after the first segment. It just seemed to me like a wasted opportunity where they really could have, had they been taking a more proactive approach in the booking, looking forward as to how they could drive this story in a direction that's going to entice some more viewers. They maybe would have taken a little bit more creative approach. But, I've thought this about the WWE for a long time. They're playing to the lowest common denominator. They're booking these matches for that basic fan that is going to watch one Raw a month and maybe order 4 pay-per-views a year. And they're trying to get them to order more, but they're going to book to this lowest common denominator because they don't want to lose. They don't want to be so creative and over the top that the cards are going to be too much for somebody who's just a casual fan.
Right. And I think that's part of the problem for those of us that do watch it on a consistent basis, because you're trotting out Alberto Del Rio and Dolph Ziggler 6 times in a matter of 4 weeks between 2 separate shows, Yeah. And it starts to wear on your consistent audience, and especially if the faces are just going to completely dominate this time of year.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, like Ryback and Mark Henry, it seems as though these two are on some sort of collision course heading towards WrestleMania. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I kind of feel like Mark Henry is just setting up to do the job here, kind of put Ryback over as the next Mark Henry maybe. You have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that they're never going to invest a ton into Mark Henry as a future superstar because the guy's just so injury prone. He's done a great job of getting himself in good shape to come back this time of the year, but he's never going to be a full-time superstar as long as, it's late in his career. But he is over as a heel. The fans do, especially the consistent fans do really like his body of work. And he's a great guy to put over somebody like Ryback. Ryback is a little green, but he has improved quite a bit. And I think giving him that sort of WrestleMania moment of the Hulk Hogan where he lifts up and puts the shell shock on Mark Henry. Granted, it's not going to be nearly as cool as Hogan whipping Andre the Giant, but I think they're going to try to repeat that at WrestleMania and say, oh, look at this guy, look how strong he is, and it's going to put him over as a superface. There's no doubt that Ryback is who they're building to be the future babyface for the company. And so, Mark Henry's going to get fed to the slaughter. I think the match will be fun, and I like the fact that they're using Mark Henry in that sort of role. But, in an ideal world, Mark Henry would be a monster heel with the world title, but it's just not going to happen,
Right. That's sad. Well, let's not waste people's time talking about the WWE. Let's get on to what they want to hear about. Let's talk about the EWA. Let's talk about everything that's happened post Uprising up until this point. Uprising, tough loss for you. Congrats to Bryce and Kurt Angle. Tough loss for Val Venus. This is a time when you have to show some resiliency as a writer and as a competitor, and you have to try and bounce back, and you have to move forward, and it can be tough. People, not everybody enjoys losing. So, this is definitely, a trying time for some, but you seem to have bounced back. Let's talk about what you're doing right now as it pertains to Val Venus and Kevin Steen.
In terms of Val Venus and Kevin Steen, I really wanted to kind of, move that match we had on Fury a couple of days before the pay-per-view to be something more than what, a one-off match, because I do think that those two guys make for a pretty healthy storyline. Kevin Steen being kind of the kind of badass, evil, dangerous guy who wants to bully everybody in the roster, and Val Venus wanted to play the hero role. But unfortunately, after such a kind of a long, consistent run myself with Val Venus, I also saw it as an opportunity to put over him a little bit. JD does a great job with Kevin Steen, and I think he can get him over as a major heel. So what we saw in Slam with Kevin Steen, brutally beating up an already injured Val Venus and kind of putting him on the shelf is going to, from my perspective, lead to Val taking some time off. I'm a bit burnt out on the character, and I have been for, probably since before Super Brawl, but the motivation of big matches like that doesn't carry you through. So on my end, I'll say now that things are probably not done with Val Venus and Kevin Steen. I don't know when they're going to pick up again, but as of right now, if you think of Val Venus' physical, condition, given the fact that he's gotten his ass kicked on a regular basis for the last month and a half, and fought in some big fights, that he's, I'm going to kind of put the character on the mend and take him out of the EWA for a little bit and see what happens if I take some time off, All
right, so you're saying right now that you're going to take Val Venus on a small break or hiatus from the EWA.
Right now, I'm saying Val Venus is taking an indefinite retirement from the EWA. I don't have a date planned. I don't know if it's going to be 6 months from now, a year from now, or whatever. But right now, I'm putting the character to the rest, because what I would hate to do is burn out to the point where I resent playing the character. And I've got some other great ideas with the other characters I handle, so I definitely want to maintain consistency with that and not burn myself out trying to do the same thing over and over again. Plus, I don't think for Val's storyline it does any good for him to continue just setting himself up for defeat by fighting when he's essentially been injured and working his ass off for the last year. The guy's obviously done a lot of work, and if you think of it in real world terms, he probably deserves a break. So,
well, that's the power of unscripted radio here, folks. We just got news that Val Venus taking an indefinite leave of retirement from the EWA.
Yeah.
You kind of caught me off guard there. Now I have to pretend like this is something that we had planned. But let's move on to the person that was on the foot kicking, or on the foot side of the ass kicking as of late. A lot of attacks from Kurt Angle, and Kurt has some stuff going on with CM Punk right now. It seems as though Harry Smith has decreed that our Grand Slam champion take a tour of Mexico. What are your thoughts on? And you and I have talked about this privately, and we have our own assumptions, and we're not in the business of giving stuff away, but we have some assumptions as to what we think is going to happen, and there's a ton of potential here. TZ, Bryce, very good writers. Yeah. CM Punk, Kurt Angle, very good characters, and this is an interesting and fun storyline that has a lot of potential. But what are your thoughts on it from the way you see it?
From the way I see it, those guys are writing some of the best storylines I've seen since they came into the EWA. TZ and Bryce, and they're consistent in terms of how they work together. And this whole Mexico tour with Kurt Angle, and the news post I saw from TZ with CM Punk hosting the EWA reality show, kind of chronicling his time, or Kurt Angle's time in Mexico. That to me is some really, really unique storytelling, and it's funny because I couldn't have predicted that, if at all. I had no idea something like that was coming in terms of a storyline. But I think that's a sign of a good creative spark between two people. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm sure it's going to lead to some sort of collision between the two characters at some point. I mean, that's an inevitable thing, but I'm curious to see how we get to that end goal, what road is taken, and how this is going to kind of factor into the day-to-day operations of the company, because as far as I know, a storyline like this with removing your Grand Slam champion from the day-to-day operations of the company he represents and putting him out there on this international tour is very different from anything that anybody's done before. So kudos to those guys for thinking of a great idea, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yes, indeed. And let's talk about some other members of the roster that don't get much DAP per show, let's say. Yeah. But right now I'm looking at the EWA Power Rankings for February. And up top we have Val Venus, Kurt Angle, Cody Rhodes, and CM Punk. That's the top four. Let's talk about 5 on down. We're starting with number 5. We got Low Key, who won the Uprising championship, number one contendership scramble, I guess you could call it. Yeah. And gets a shot at Cody Rhodes. A very young and up and coming kid. Like, he does some great writing. He is doing, some really fun stuff, and it's nice to see some new blood come in like this and create these characters and like move stories with them like he has been so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think the guy who handles him, who I've not interacted with much, is somebody who, obviously the character is a strong one. And you can see that from the get-go. He came out of the box with a kind of very clear definition of how the character's played. But at the same time, I don't know if he's going to be ready for the consistent top-level performance yet. He's going to clash with you in a couple weeks, I guess, at the pay-per-view, and I hope he's ready for it, because I know you're going to give him one hell of a shot and one hell of a fight. But I like what he's been doing. It's been a creative approach. I like the fact that he uses a kind of an entourage of characters that seem to have a good rapport, and I think he's a good shot at making a dent in 2013 as a major character, and he's got nowhere else to go but up. I don't think he's going to get any worse. So
right.
Yeah,
as long as you. Yeah, and him and Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, these guys have come in and they've been consistent, and that's been the key. I think. Let's not mince words. Scott, who is Seth Rollins, has come in, and he's come and gone and had some different characters, but his Seth Rollins has been consistent, and the character hasn't wavered, and it's been the same every time, and he's created this persona and this individuality for Seth Rollins, and he's done a very good job of it as well. Yeah,
I've been happy to see it, given that I've interacted with Scott a couple times on on the OOC and through Messenger and things like that. And he's always a guy that's driven to perform. He likes to play the character, and I've told him time and time again, if he focuses on one character and sticks with it, he's gonna have success. And I'm glad to see that. And I mean, I know in the past he's kind of changed who he handled kind of halfway through a feud or 2 or 3 weeks into his tenure, and hasn't always gotten along with everybody on the roster. But I'm glad to see that he's kind of slotted into a spot with Seth Rollins, and I know that I think if he continues at this rate, he's gonna have some success with the character.
So. Right, and someone else that's like that too is Brock Lesnar, who has just quietly carved a niche out for himself, at least on Fury. You don't see him much on Slam, but when he's booked in matches, he is he's been consistent. He's been the thing he does with Sable and Brock has been a decent read so far. And for those who haven't read his stuff yet, it's definitely worth taking a look at. I know that we're not, we don't have the time to read everyone's role plays, and I'm just as guilty as everyone.
Yeah,
but
sure.
if you take the time and look and see some of these up and comers, there's a lot of potential there. To round out the rest of the top 10, you have Kevin Steen at 7. We already talked about him. Your boys, the Vegas Connection, at 9.
Yeah.
Definite a dominant tag team right now. They're going to be hard to beat. I think that's why you see stuff like the Empire, Dan starting to make a comeback with them. You got John and Bick joining forces with the Rock and Carino, and like you have you and I we have our tag team, the Deans, that are going through some stuff right now. So there's a lot of potential in the tag team division as well.
I think the tag team division is one of the greatest untapped areas. If you look at the roster, it's not like we don't have a lot of tag teams. It's just that we can't get anybody to stick with a tag team for long enough to make it a competitive division. And, it's got to be kind of daunting for some folks when you come and you see a team like the Vegas Connection, who are consistently, very, very good from top to bottom, each and every match they have, and are constantly putting on creative work, and kind of at the top of the division. It's got to be hard to come in and say, I'm gonna climb to the top, I know from my perspective, everybody wants to be a singles wrestler. They want to be a singles champion. There's a lot of glory to it. But I personally think the biggest challenge in EWA is finding that other handler to work with and create a team that may involve the collaboration of 2 people. That's almost more fun than trying to write everything on your own, because you get the benefit of working with other people. When we did Super Brawl and we did the collaboration between the 5 of us in terms of the group role plays, like that was a huge boost from my motivation, and just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other and stuff like that allows for some more enjoyment. So I hope to see in the future kind of growth of the tag team division, and I know we're going to try to make waves with our team fairly soon, and I think that division, which has struggled the past year, is going to become nothing more but more competitive over the next couple weeks.
The dominoes are certainly falling in place for that to happen. So, and then rounding out the top 10 is Jericho, and what can you say, Jericho?
Yeah.
Way to go, buddy. way to get up there, Jericho. Congratulations. You got the 10 spot.
Well, you seem to always just be hanging out around there somewhere. You never know, and then suddenly Ed pops in at number 10. Like
Exactly, yeah. Ed's the guy that comes in and gets a C or a C plus, and then just doesn't show up till the next test. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, for sure.
All right, well, let's. This is a portion of our show called "Paint Us in Your Anus," and now it's time for
Paint Us in Your Anus, 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 Paint Us in Your Anus.
This is the name of this section, so hopefully you're ready for that.
Okay.
And what the point of this is I want you have 30 seconds, and I want you to talk about something, whether it's EWA or WWE related, that is a real pain in your ass, okay? So you have 30 seconds here to talk about something EWA or WWE related that really kind of grinds your gears, okay? Are you ready?
I guess so. I mean, I don't know.
All right, your 30 seconds starts right now.
I guess the most frustrating thing I see, I'm going to touch on EWA and WWE. With EWA is in terms of how little the banners get updated sometimes on the front page. Not that I could help with that. And then in the WWE, I just can't stand seeing repeat matches between the same guys every week. It turns me off as a viewer and makes me want to change the channel. So there we go.
That has been Penis in Your Anus.
Yes.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. I know, Brett, you and I could go on for hours and talk about wrestling, whether it be EWA or WWE. We could go on for hours and just talk about it on end. But I don't want to bore the listener, and hopefully they've not turned it off by now, and hopefully this EWA podcast can grow some legs, and we can finally, start having more podcasts. So if you're still listening and you'd like to be a guest on the EWA podcast with me, please just send me a personal message, or you can add me on. We do this via Skype, so you'll need to download Skype, the Skype client, in order to do the podcast with me, and then just send me a message on the site, say, hey, Craig, podcast kind of sucked. I think it'd be a lot better if you had me on it instead of that boring-ass Brett. You still here? I didn't hang up on you? My bad. My bad, dude. So if you want to be on the podcast, feel free. Just send me a message. Say, hey, man, this is something I think I want to be a part of. I'd love to be on with you and talk about all the wrestling stuff going on. And, we can probably get that worked out. Brett, it's been a huge pleasure. Thank you for being the first victim and guest I had on the EWA podcast. I wish you the best of luck going forward with the Deans. And if you ever bring back Val Venus, I hope he doesn't run into Cody Rhodes.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was an honor to be on the show, man.
All right. You take it easy, and we'll talk to you guys next time we talk to you.